You have herpes, you are disgusting, no one will love you, no man will choose you, your sex life is ruined. Oh my God, I can't run from this voice that I've been trying to avoid my entire life, and now it's here, and now the only thing left to do is actually do the work and look at it.
And that is the work that most people will spend their entire life avoiding, the one thing that sets them free. Welcome back to Wildly Empowered Women. Today, I am joined by Beck Antonucci, who is an emotional well-being coach and the host of Raw, Real and Vulnerable podcast.
There's one piece of this puzzle that fits right in the middle that's going to help all the other pieces slot in, and it's you using your voice around it.
What's been the reaction from people around you, people that know you, since you've come out, in inverted commas, and shared your story with herpes?
My biggest thing was...
Welcome back to Wildly Empowered Women. Today, I am joined by Beck Antonucci, who is an emotional well-being coach and the host of Raw, Real and Vulnerable podcast, a incredibly awesome podcast that I definitely recommend you go and check out. Beck coaches people to break free from their limiting beliefs and stigma and take action from courage and worthiness. She is a massive stand for living fearlessly and being self-expressed, and she has the most incredible story that I'm so excited to bring to you today. So thank you so much, Beck, for being with us.
Well, I'm so pumped to be here, Jess, and I can't wait to dive in.
Amazing. So first question, which I know you were expecting, it's what you stand for and it's what you're known for. Annihilating stigma. Let's talk stigma. So can you tell us how this passion came to be and how herpes plays such a big role in it?
Yeah, I would love to. So I speak very loudly, proudly, expressively, courageously online about breaking free from herpes stigma and shame. And really for me, what herpes represents is just a woman reclaiming her personal power back from any single thing that she thought made her a lesser person in society's eyes. And the reason that I'm such a stand for it is something got caught in my throat. At one stage in my life, I really believed that the herpes virus was brought here to ruin me, that it was here to hurt and harm me, that no one would ever accept me with it, that no man would ever desire me, like and love me, that no man would ever choose me, that no woman would want to be my friend anymore. I really felt rejected in the face of society, and it's been my greatest teacher and the hardest thing that I've ever navigated. And I've come out the other side of it realizing what an incredible spiritual teacher herpes was for me personally and my life's journey, and my life's journey with rejection and my life's journey with desiring to be chosen by a man. And it was really my reclamation of this piece around herpes that has supported me to really amplify who I am as a woman, my ownership, my self-expression, my own courage, my willingness to be seen in the face of my fear of judgment or not being chosen by whoever it is. And now, because it's created so much freedom for me to be me, it's been such a huge permission slip. It activated this intense desire within me to want to support other women to be able to heal from this and share themselves courageously and expressively in their own unique ways.
So incredible. You are such a beautiful embodiment of your message with courage and worthiness. And it's such a beautiful message that you share around actually asking yourself the question, what are you avoiding? So can you talk a little bit into, your journey with this question and what it came to be?
Yeah, that's always like at the end of every podcast, people are like, what would you ask? Get the guests to ask themselves. And that is really the question that I get everyone to sit with, because my journey was stemmed from being bullied in high school. I went to a prestigious girls' school. I was bullied by my best friend and the entire year group, and I felt very alone. And it brought up a lot within me about what's wrong with me, what's not good enough about me, why am I so different than everyone else, why am I not pretty? Maybe all the things that they're saying about me are real and true. And underneath that, what I really desired was friendship, community, belonging, to fit in, to have friends, to be invited places. And I really felt outcast. And another word for that could be rejected. And that's a huge core wound for most women that enter my world. I didn't know what core wounds were. I didn't know what subconscious beliefs were. I didn't know what limiting beliefs were. So I just knew when I left school, I can't be what they all used to scream at me. I need to run from what they used to say. They used to scream at me, you're disgusting and you're rank. They were the two words that they would yell at me. In the schoolyard, I was very studious. I would never get up at assembly because they would scream it as I'm walking up on stage. I was in every sport team, so I didn't have to sit by myself. If the ball got passed to me, that would get screamed. It was just constant a constant internal narrative that was like, I'm disgusting, I'm rank, I'm disgusting, I am rank. And I used to question as they were yelling this thing at me, like, maybe I am that, maybe I am that, maybe I am that. And I didn't realize that that's what's going on in the back of my mind constantly. So when I left school, I was like, I can't be that. And so I tried to avoid it. I went and got a boyfriend because obviously I painted women as harmful and dangerous because they bullied me, and that I attempted to take my life at age 14. So I realized that women are going to create emotional pain that then is going to create physical harm. I went and got a boyfriend thinking that's where I would find my safety, and our relationship ended through a breakup. He punched me in my head, knocked me unconscious. That was very humiliating. It came with a lot of shame. It brought up all the things that I used to think about myself. Why can I not just be loved and liked exactly how I am? Why was I not good enough to be treated right? What is wrong with me? Maybe I am disgusting. Maybe I'm rank. And I kept attracting scenarios just like this. I got to 25, I'm like, am I attracted to drama? But I kept further perpetuating the same experience of what I told myself I couldn't not be. I got into body image, into bodybuilding, into sports modeling, with the narrative in the back of my mind. I'd be on the treadmill being like, you can't be those things that they say. Ended up with a eating disorder and 10 years of bulimia. You could label that disgusting and rank. I used to make myself sick, eat bottles of laxatives, wake up in the bathroom covered in vomit and many other things. And I didn't realize what I was avoiding was the core wound of rejection that occurred at age 14, that from that point, I spent my young adult life, all of my 20s, just running from it. And then herpes came, again, humiliating, shameful, embarrassing, could be labeled, I don't label that, but could be labeled as disgusting and rank, was the very thing I'd spent my entire life trying not to be. And then God put this on my path. And it got to a point of like, oh my God, I've spent 10 years trying to avoid not being this, and now it's here. And herpes is so loud. It's like this loud siren in the back of your mind that goes off all day long. You were disgusting. You have herpes. No one will love you. You have herpes. No man will choose you. You have herpes. Your sex life is ruined. You have herpes. And it was like, oh my God, I can't run from this voice that I've been trying to avoid my entire life. And now it's here. And now the only thing left to do is actually do the work and look at it.
And that is the work that most people will spend their entire life avoiding. And it's the one thing that sets them free. So I love this conversation. In terms of that whole journey with you going, okay, I'm actually going to own the one thing that I'm just desperately trying to squash and pretend doesn't exist. Obviously, that doesn't come overnight, right? The things that we are most ashamed of course, they're going to be the most liberating, but it also doesn't come overnight. So are you willing to share your journey of how that sort of came to be, like how you can speak so openly and empoweringly now when it actually was such a big thing holding you back?
Yeah, I mean, I shared that I attempted to take my life in high school, but suicide ideation was attached to it, the herpes diagnosis. I never attempted, but at the stage, that first month of diagnosis, I literally thought to myself, I can't live my life like this. I can't envision a life like this. And I just say that to emphasize to anyone in this experience, it's so normal. And to anyone that has a friend going through this experience, it's so much heavier than you might realize. Like some people will be like, oh, it's so common. Isn't it just like the cold sore virus? But the emotional experience of feeling so isolated, especially if your core wound is rejection, can feel like the worst, most life-ruining thing to ever happen to you. And it wasn't a fast journey, but I remember sitting on the beach one day, I was a wreck, I was crying, and I just thought like, why has this happened to me? And I remember hearing a voice that said, you have nowhere else to look, Rebecca, but within. And now it's your time to create worthiness from who you are as a woman, not what you look like, not who chooses you, not what people think about you. Because I spent my whole life living, feeling good enough based on what you said about me. If you thought I was good, I was great. You said that you listened to 2 podcast episodes, love them, amazing, I'm the best person ever. If you listened to them and said they were actually like, they're all right, but they're not the best podcast episodes I've ever listened to, a negative opinion or one that didn't fully validate me would have sent me into a spiral. I created my entire life around whether people approved of me or not. And so this was a really big and long and deep journey, but I got into personal development, and that was kind of my permission slip of, wow, behind closed doors, in these weird rooms with these interesting people, everyone's talking about guilt and shame and things that have happened to them that I didn't realize actually happens to humans, and people are actually super vulnerable. And oh wow, people can get tools to support them, to help them through really hard things. And I will never tell anyone about this, but maybe I could find some tools to help me and I'll never have to tell anyone. And so I got really deep into personal development, and so deep, I think I'd done 6 years worth of courses, and I felt like I'd known everything, and I was seeing all my friends doing coaching online, and I'm like, oh, they're crap, I'm better than them, and I'm not even a coach. I know everything now because I've done so much. I just wanted to find a way to like, love, and accept myself. I'd done so many plant medicines because I believed that I could heal this naturally, and I was like, I'm going to heal it and never tell anyone about it and stuff it helping anyone else. I'm just going to help me. And it got to a point where I had done so much work, but the only thing that I had not done was use my voice around this, because that was still my deepest pain, my deepest shame. Saying it to you, like, hey, Jess, I just think it's really important that you know you're my friend, and I want to share with you I'm going through a really hard time. I test positive for the herpes virus, and it's been really, really challenging for me to be able to communicate that to anyone. That was like the most horrific thing I could have ever imagined doing and saying, even to my best friend or a woman that's in the work and is just going to nod and accept me for it. And it got to a point where, like, I knew so much, I felt so capable, but my life, it felt like I had all of these jigsaw pieces that wanted to fit together and they just weren't. And I was like, why is my life actually a shambles when I'm so capable? And I knew, it was like, come on, Rebecca, you know why. There's one piece of this puzzle that fits right in the middle that's going to help all the other pieces slot in. And it's you using your voice around this. And so I knew that that was what had to be done. I invested in my mentor, Preston Smiles. And I said to him, this is the one thing that I have avoided and tried not to tell anyone, never wanted to own, never wanted to be seen publicly owning, never wanted to admit to a man, never wanted to admit to a family member or a friend. And I know it's time that I do that. That is the jigsaw piece that is missing. So I did his program for 6 months, and that shifted and changed everything.
So what has happened? What's been the reaction from people around you, people that know you, relationships that you've had, and your following, you know, and just people generally on the internet since you've come out, in inverted commas, and shared your story with herpes?
Yeah, I mean, my biggest thing was fearing not being chosen. Like, I went live on Facebook. That was my, I'm doing air quotes right now. That was my coming out moment. And for me, that moment was like putting a stake in the sand and saying to my inner teenager, even Rebecca, if no one chooses us from this point onwards, we are no longer going to live our lives putting the weight of our worthiness on Jessica's opinion of us. So we're going to choose us, and I'm going to be there for you no matter what comes. So I put my stake in the ground. I reclaim my inner teenager's bullied voice. We go public and live on Facebook, and I met with Me Too's, You're So Brave, at validation, confirmation, appreciation, adoration, and the biggest thing that I've ever feared, or she had ever feared, rejection. I actually created the polar opposite of that experience. Of course, I'm sure anyone that doesn't align with me being this way is naturally repelled, like, oh, she's a lot. She talks about random crap on the internet. But I know now that they're not in alignment with me. They don't vibrate at the same frequency. They don't think the same thoughts as me. And everyone who is so compelled and attracted to authenticity and truth and vulnerability and women owning their power, they just come to me like magnets. Or women who are desiring to create this level of freedom and expression and permission for themselves. It just attracts into my life. I say this all the time. One of my superpowers is I'm a magnet aligned community attractor. Like, all the women in my world, in my groups, in my programs, in my team, they're just so in alignment with me. And the same as dating. I was like, oh my God, no man's ever going to choose me with this. And I met with so much, again, adoration, appreciation, respect, men who are like, I'm really sorry that happened to you, but I'm not, because of the woman that you've become. And I just desire to treat you the way that you really deserve and fill that cup that didn't get filled by others. And I have beautiful men that are entering my world now. And I love the herpes conversation because it creates deep intimacy and deep trust, deep respect. And it requires, my belief, a level of strength and emotional intelligence to be able to hold it. And that's really what I'm attracted to when it comes to partnership.
That is such a beautiful lesson in worthiness and self-love as well. Like, if you can love yourself, all parts of yourself, and not judge yourself and not shame yourself for not just herpes, like in general, anything that we hide and squash and shame and try and hide away. If you can openly have that conversation, it doesn't own you anymore, and it's not the thing that is, holding you back in life, relationships, self-expression. So I just love this message so much. How has this, because this is now your niche, helping women be fully self-expressed and owning all parts of them and being real, raw and vulnerable. How has that now played out in the people who work with you, your clients?
Yeah, I mean, women come to me for so many different things. They will not resonate with herpes, but resonate with the emotional experience that I talk about that's attached to herpes. There's stigma attached to so many different things, and there's so many reasons why a woman would feel not safe to be herself in this world. But my woman is coming to me because she just is feeling not in integrity with herself. Like maybe she's pretending to be confident. Maybe you walk past her on the street and she looks like people ask me all the time, what kind of women do you work with? I'm like, really beautiful, really smart, really intelligent, successful women who they'll have created a life that looks really amazing from the outside. And they know that it's an act, they know that it's a wall, they know that it's a facade, they know it's a mask. And because they don't feel as successful and worthy within, they feel like a fraud, they feel like an imposter, because they're like, well, everyone looks at me and thinks I've got it all and I've got it all together, but I actually don't. And this doesn't feel like real confidence because I don't feel confident in the parts of me that I don't love. And there's a real resistance for them in owning it, like it makes them weak, or they don't want to go there. They're worried about being judged for it, or it makes them a lesser person to really own it. So women come into my groups and just feel such a sense of relief just to be able to communicate and give a voice to these parts of ourselves that we just pushed away or tried to fix. We're like, oh, if I get the perfect body, I'll fix that. If I get a great boyfriend, I'll fix that. Realizing that we can't fix what's going on inside. And we do a lot of work just to create space and to tend to those really gentle, sensitive, beautiful parts that exist inside of all of us, and look at, that core wound of not being enough, not being good enough, and creating some space for it rather than trying to fix it. I think I've spent my entire life trying to fix that wound, and there's no fixing it, but there's definitely a lot of excavating and being with it. And I think that creates a lot of permission. And I think what women love most about coming into my world is just the relatability of, I love to meet women on the level that they're at and not be bigger than them, better than them, and I envision all the women in my world, we're all sitting in circle together, talking and creating normalcy and resonance around everything that we go through and like the human experience. And it's just so rich and so fun and so funny and so sexy and so like, I just love it. And it creates so much space for the women in my world to be more of themselves. And that's what really excites me. The fully expressed woman, whatever her unique full self-expression.
Yes, that is so fulfilling. And I also feel another thing with stigma and actually talking about it is you just never know whose life you're impacting by them just feeling less alone. So I went through something similar. My first son, I've got 3 kids, and my first son was through IVF. And I started doing IVF when I was 25, and due to PCOS, and I was always told that I would have trouble falling pregnant because I just didn't have a regular cycle. I didn't have a regular period. And no one knew I was going through IVF, not even my parents. I was so ashamed of it, didn't tell a single person, like just thought that I was this crazy 25-year-old. Like when we started, I ended up having him when I was 27, I think. I just thought that, like it's rare and it's something people don't talk about. So then with my second child, we also did IVF, and I shared my story, and I really actually got like pretty loud and proud about the fact that we were going through IVF and having fertility issues. And I was the same. Like I couldn't believe how many people already in my network reached out to me saying, same, like we're having fertility issues, we've been doing IVF, or we've been doing this or that, or, and it just like I was doing it for both like selfishly for myself because I didn't want to feel so alone again. Like I felt so alone the first time round. I just didn't want to feel alone. And listening to your story, it made me think of you and like how you shared that, you had looked online for women talking about herpes. You'd looked for someone that, somehow resembled you to just feel less alone in the journey. And you couldn't find that. You couldn't find one bloody person that was actually saying, this is my journey, like this is what it's like, and like kind of just being, I don't want to say the poster child, but like just allowing women to feel less alone in their journey. And, you know, whether it's IVF, whether it's herpes, whether it's whatever it is, like the battle that we often face, we feel like we're the only one, or we feel shame around it because we don't know someone that has experienced the same. But, you know, I've heard you share, the moment you actually open those floodgates and share your story, you'd be surprised at how many people have actually been through the same or have been looking for support in the same area. So can you share, like, you know, what are the messages that you get on the daily? Like what has the impact been since you've done that?
Before we go on, I want to ask you a super powerful question. What would it mean to you to make decisions based on your soul rather than your bank balance? Freedom to me means having true autonomy and choice in your life to live based off your values and soul's desires, rather than what you can purely afford for you and your family or what your job requires of you. This is why I've been empowering women for the past almost 5 years to earn more with pleasure, earning your true worth without the insane hustle and with actually having choice in your life. It is so much more about how you earn rather than what you earn. If you'd like to learn more about how I mentor women to earn a time-leveraged income online, selling conscious, health-based products and learning the skills of personal branding and attraction marketing, both very sexy skills to have, then click on the link in the show notes or DM me the word info on Instagram so we can have a proper chat. I love having one-on-one convos with you savvy queens and showing you how this kind of income and our community can help you truly live wildly empowered. Big love, back to the episode.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, my mentor, Preston, always says what's most personal is most universal. And I will be honest and say I had found people talking about it online, but I always speak about our core human need to belong, which really directly impacts that part of us that has a core wound of rejection of like, these people that I found online didn't represent me. I needed to find a beautiful woman that was, you know, maybe expressed in her sexuality. I found very like academic women, or I found dorky men, and I looked at them and thought, yeah, okay, you're talking about it, but you don't look like a beautiful woman who cares about what people think or a socialite, or I needed someone that looked like me to represent me. And so when I did that for other women, I think what I've done with herpes, because lots of people are speaking about it now, I've kind of made it sexy and spiritual versus medical and gross and icky. And so women feel really, when they come to my page, it feels empowering versus like, oh, that topic that I want to avoid. But in terms of messages, I mean, I can read you like just 3 that I tagged to my story. Like literally, I go through my DMs all the time because I like to be able to respond to as many people as I can. But I was on news.com.au the other day for my story, and I received a message this morning. Hi, lovely. My good friend, for this, we'll call him Sam. My good friend Sam saw your article in the paper and called me to express that he has herpes. And it's the first time he was able to share that he has really struggled with so much shame, and expressing this to anyone, and it's really affected his intimate life. He wanted me to reach out, as he doesn't have Instagram, to see if he could email you or get in touch in another way, and also to express his gratitude for you about how you share and how much this affects men also. That was a beautiful one. I received one today. I was just diagnosed today and found your video interview with Dr. Becky from 2021. Well, I'm still in so much shock and disbelief. I'm truly grateful I came across you. Thank you so much. Another one. I feel like it was divine timing that you popped into my newsfeed yesterday. I was just started dating again since my HSV diagnosis. I had been dating this guy who I thought was super open and caring for 3 weeks. And after 3 weeks, I disclosed before any sexy time had ever occurred. And then he ghosted me. And that was just like the guy who gave it to me. I thought that this was healed, but I had a massive panic attack last night. And then your podcast alone has helped me come back to reality. Thank you for being the queen that you are, and keep fucking going. That's just like 3 that I found in my DMs just before this episode. I get them all day long, every day. And it's like every time, because I'm so far removed from the herpes experience, I've kind of packed up my life in Australia, left my partner, and following the courageous path and this internal knowing that like that's really what's exciting and activating me, and all the internal war that's attached to, you know, the uncertainty of this path. And sometimes I'm like, I don't need to talk about herpes anymore. And then I'll open my DMs and like, I need to. women will be like, I was going to kill myself, and then I came across your page and I believed that it was possible to break free from this. Women who have lived 20 years suppressed in shame. Women in my groups, I mean, I talk to a very specific woman, a specific age group online, and I have women in my groups who are in their late 60s who were diagnosed in their 20s, who have never shared this with anyone except me, and have lived for 40 plus years suppressed by the shame of this, feeling like they are unworthy, they are unlovable, they never got married because of this, or they got married and never told their husband. They feel like this ruined their entire life. That there is so many different and very unique life experiences attached to this that I receive every day that I could never stop talking about it.
Just witnessing you and all of the insane amount of impacts you've created by just having the courage to share this. I'd love to ask, because I feel like people would be listening and thinking this, for someone that is like, you know what, I'm ready to actually own what I'm shaming, what advice would you give them if they're like, I'm ready to actually address it and to own it, but I'm scared absolute shitless?
Yeah. Oh, there's so many things that I could look at. I would maybe ask about the scared part first, the part that you're really scared shitless of. Like, I would ask you about that. And maybe you could just sit and write down at the top of a piece of paper, like, what am I truly scared of? I'm scared of a man not choosing me. I'm scared of my family judging me. I'm scared of talking about it on the internet and everyone and my business collapsing because of it. Like, what are you really scared of? And then we could go super logical and be like, what are the costs of you never really owning this piece of you and creating some amount of peace and neutrality and acceptance around it? And it could be that, well, a lot of women in my world are like, well, I settled for partners that don't meet my standards because I don't believe that I'm worthy of the kind of man that would accept a woman with this. Like, I don't think the man that I'm attracted to would ever accept a woman with this. That's their belief system. So just get really clear, like, what are the costs? It's an unfulfilling partnership. Maybe it's a mediocre business. Maybe it's never feeling truly in your own congruency and authenticity and integrity with yourself. Get really clear about how this is impacting your life in a detrimental way. And then have a look at all the benefits that could occur if you were to do the work around this. Like, for me, starting my business, creating community. I now have a podcast. I have a team of women. I can travel all over the world. I have a flexible lifestyle. It was really because I had a business before this, and it was a beautiful business, and it was definitely not the path of least resistance because God didn't want it for me. I had an activewear, an eco-organic activewear, and I kept facing off with hardship and arguing with my business partner and a lawsuit, and just everything was so hard. And when I finally said yes to this and the courage that was required, the doors opened and everything was easy and easeful. And my business just like flew without it. Like, I work hard, but it's like effortless hard work. It really was like, I just needed to say yes. And as soon as I said yes to God, God was like, let's go. And so you could get really curious about once you say yes, what could potentially open up for you? A really aligned partnership, deep intimacy. A lot of women who don't use their voice around this end up with partners who they haven't disclosed to, and they never feel sexually free because they're having sex with someone who in the back of their mind are like, he doesn't know the truth. If he knew the truth, I wonder what he would be thinking. And that's really impacting what you really desire, which is deep, incredible intimacy. So I would get clear on what the benefits are, because that could really be an anchor, because the path isn't easy. I mean, it's not hard. I think living living suppressed and living in your shame and living in your smallness and living in your wounds is much harder than the courageous path, but neither path is easy. And if you have an anchor to remind yourself why, that could be the driver to keep pushing you on the days that it is hard. It's like leaving my partner and moving to Bali was hard, but settling in Perth, Western Australia and living an unfulfilled life was actually harder, which required me to go through all of these uncomfortable emotions that are attached to leaving someone I love, packing up my home, leaving my family, leaving my sister's dog, living in a different place, making new friends. It was all uncomfortable, but I know because of I'm so clear on my vision of what I'm calling in that I can't not do the hard thing.
Yeah, it's like choose your hard. Both of them are going to be hard. Which one is going to have the better long-term impact? So I love that you've given the example of your relationship breakup and moving to Bali. Like, how did that come about? Like, what has been the journey to that breakup and the lessons from it?
Yeah, I just didn't feel lit up for so long. Like I haven't felt lit up from the inside out, and I attracted in a beautiful partner, like my favorite human. His name is Jake, and he's the most amazing man. But I I didn't feel fully myself in terms of my sexual expression. I felt like he has his highest value in relationship is companionship. My highest value is intimacy. And so they were really conflicting because he felt like he was unmet as a companion. I felt like I was unmet in the depth of intimacy that I desire. And also our stages of life started to look very different. Since the borders opened after COVID, I had gone traveling to 10 different places. I married my best friends in Greece. I've supported my mentor's work all over America and the eastern states of Australia. I've run events down the eastern states of Australia, gone to Bali multiple times, and he built businesses in Perth, Western Australia that really kept him stuck there. And I did that all on my own. And every time I went somewhere, I had this desire. I wish he could come. I wish he could come. I wish he could come. And he can't come. Not at this stage of his life. And so it really got to a point of I wanted to keep going more. And he was starting to feel abandoned every time I wanted to leave, or I wanted to live in Bali for a few months. And so, yeah, it just got to a really honest point of saying, hey, are we best friends that want to be more and our stages of life just aren't aligning? We have beautiful, some very shared values and some different. And with me feeling so intimately unmet, it was creating a lot of frustration within me. So then he was left feeling unsupported he was going through a lot of hardship in business. And it just, again, you know how I speak about the path of least resistance. It was kind of like my activewear where I wanted it so much. Like I wanted my activewear to work. I wanted Jake and I to work. But I kept hitting resistance, hardship, financial hardship, difficulty, struggle, no pleasure, no aliveness, no lit up from the inside out. And it got to a point where I knew what I had to do, but I created so much safety and friendship within him that it was so courageous to cut that cord, and so hard. I've never had a loving breakup before. They've always had two that have just been awful. And so it was so hard to leave someone that I love, but I know for the depth of intimacy that I'm holding space for, and the kind of committed partner and the pleasurable partnership and the expansive partnership, and I desire to create a vision with someone, impact thousands of women's lives all over the world together. That just wasn't happening with Jake. And I had to really own at 35, I get to really own what I'm here for, and I'm not willing to be patient and wait on what might not happen.
So powerful. I love that. I'd love to ask, when you were making that decision, it's a pretty big life decision to leave someone, especially if things were relatively good, right? Like if you were pretty happy, things were peachy, like, you know, they just weren't everything that you desired. I feel like that's a lot of people in relationships, and a lot of people in jobs, and a lot of people in life, and a lot of people with where they live, and, you know, they stay because things are good. They're not great, but they're good, right? So my decision making is always around like, okay, well, if I actually allowed the space for things to be great, what would I need to let go of so that there is space there for the great to happen? What is there like a question that you ask, or a process that you go through to make those hard decisions and to just really get down to the truth of what you're feeling?
I mean, I guess there's a part of my internal knowing. Like I was on a plane last year coming back from Amalfi Coast, and then this voice woke me up out of my sleep and was like, you need to leave Jake. Jake, it's not Jake. I know you want it to be Jake, but it's not Jake. And so I really went to war with this voice for a really long time. And I always believe that the first voice is intuition and the second voice is fear. And so the first voice would say, it's not Jake. And the second voice would say, no, but I want it to be. And so for me, when I heard that voice, I had to, knowing that my truth is, first voice is always intuition, Rebecca. And then I would go into like, no, but I want it to be. I want it, like I fought for it to be Jake. Like my humanness wanted it to be him. And so I had to really explore what that was. Like, what is this fear? What is the fear of leaving Jake? What is the fear of losing Jake? If it's not Jake, what does that mean? And I had to get really clear about what that meant for me, my life, what I felt about change, what I felt about uncertainty, what core wounds it would bring up within me. Like, you know, the conflict, the the desire for deeper intimacy has been a frequent complaint within partnership for me. And so I've really had to turn that around and look at myself of like, where am I not intimate enough with myself? Why is this a frequent complaint in partnership? And it's very easy for me to go into, obviously my core wound being rejection, and I went into a disordered eating pattern. It's very easy for me to be like, I'm the problem, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not skinny enough, I'm not sexy enough. And I had to explore all of that and be with all of those fears and then ask, okay, and what is the vision for your life? And do I believe that this person can meet me there? And am I willing to live without this vision? And I know that I'm a no. Like I'm this deep, pleasurable, intimate partnership. I know it exists for me. I can feel it, which means I know my truth is I have to be a no to everything that's like kind of it, but not quite, to make space for my yes. And which means I have to go through the really annoying part of the knowing what I desire and being a no to everything that's not that, because all of our stuff comes up in that space. But I know what I'm a commitment to, and I just cannot settle. I just cannot sacrifice, and I'm not willing to tolerate, because if I settle, I'm creating more settling. If I tolerate, I'm creating more dissatisfaction. And so I get to stay in commitments that, even though it's really hard, that's my process.
Love that.
And my other key thing that I'm going to put in there, Jess, is having a community of aligned people around you that hold the vision for you when you forget. Because in this move to Bali, all my wounds have come up. I've wanted to run back. I've convinced myself that I could be happy where I wasn't happy. I could be happy in the relationship. I could be happy in Perth. And having friends that remind me of the vision when I'm like, I've made a massive mistake and I need to go back to the life that I left. Having people that hold the vision for you when you forget is super powerful.
I couldn't agree more. If you were with sort of small-minded, scarcity thinking people, they would be like, oh, babe, just go back then. That'll make you happy. Like just go back. You can just, go back there. You can get your old place back. You can this, that. Like they would actually just try and fix it in that way, instead, with probably great intentions as well. But I could not agree more that it's really important that you have big thinkers and visionaries and people that are on the same wavelength as you, as your like 5 core, like influences in your life. So that's beautiful that you've got that over in Bali as well.
I love that you just said that, because I left a home of 6 years and I left the home to move out with my ex-partner, and it was a huge process for me. But so many people were like, once I left 6 months too soon for myself. So many people were like, do you think you can go back? Can you get the lease back? Can you move back? And there was such a like, no, like I'm upset about the process. However, we're not going back. Like that phase is done. There's no backwards. That cord is cut, and it's time to look forward, not try and backpedal into where I came from.
Yeah, it's such a reflection of like that person's thinking that you have to fix it by go backwards and going back to the same place. Whereas, if you were talking to someone that was maybe a bigger picture, like visionary thinker, they'd be like, cool, well, what did you learn from it? Like, how are you a better person? How are things better? Like, how can you move forward? What's the next step? Like, awesome. Like, things didn't work out. How did that redirect you on the correct path? Rather than it being like, let's go back and retrace your steps. Like, it's such it would have been a very interesting set of conversations to have. In terms of living life led by desire, which I know is a huge, beautiful message that you share, is there anything else that you want to share on how to actually do that?
I would love for that person that's listening right now to get clear about what her desires even are, and start to notice where you settle for less than that. Because now that I'm so clear about, I'm 35 and I'm really owning, I'm like ready to love and be loved. And I feel like that's the first time in maybe my entire life that I've ever actually owned that. And I've gotten really clear on how is it that I desire to, I'm like the bad bitch leader in my business, and it really works. And I don't want to be that aspect of Beck anywhere else in my life, especially not in partnership. So what is it? And that's such an easy default program that can run. I can do it all myself. I've got this. I don't need no one. I like that strong, independent woman. And I didn't desire to be her at all. especially not in relationship. That doesn't work. And so I've had to ask myself, what is it that I desire to call in that will allow me to soften into these parts of me that I really desire to bring to in relationship? How do I desire to be treated? How do I desire to be cared for, provided for, spoken to, touched, and just getting really like whatever domain of life is relevant for you. For me right now, it's relationship. For some women in my world, they're desiring business. For some women, they're ready to leave their hometown that they've been in their entire life, and they want to fly the nest and go to somewhere that they've never been before and start a whole new life. Like, for some women, it's friendship. And I'd just like for you to think about, what is it that you desire in that particular domain? Like, you could do your desires and your standards for that area of your life. And I think that will support you to have more clarity around what it is that you're calling in. And then when what's not that presents, you can choose how you want to be with it. Like, for obviously mine is partnership right now. And I didn't realize how much I really love. I always just thought my love language was physical touch, but I love considerate acts of service. And this man dropped me home last night, and everyone rides scooters in Bali. He was a terrible driver. Terrible. It didn't make me feel safe. I didn't feel unsafe, but I didn't feel like he's got me energy. I'm desiring deep intimacy. So I know I actually need someone that's an amazing driver, because I feel for me that's a sign of like, oh, he's just got me. And this guy is so lovely, but I kind of look at him like, you're kind of like a little bit of a princess. I feel like my girlfriends dropped me home last night because they're all terrible scooter drivers. And just it's so micro how attuned I am to what I desire now. But I know that the more that I'm in tune to everything else outside of intimacy in the bedroom and just literally being touched or had your hand held or whatever it is, it creates the deeper intimacy that I actually really want. So that's what I'm really tuning into and would love women to explore. Yes, your standards in that particular domain and your desires. And then just start witnessing yourself almost like a third party, being like, oh, look, there's Beck saying yes to, she knows she's a no to that. She knows that she's a bit bored and that's just attention. And just like watching yourself and be like, oh, no wonder I'm creating this like kind of okay experience. That's not really what she desires. I wonder why she's saying yes to it. Just getting curious about yourself. That's what I would recommend.
Such great advice. And so if a beautiful listener would like to go and follow you, learn from you, stalk you, work with you, what's the best place for them to go and what can they expect?
Oh, amazing. Everyone is welcome in my world. And I think like the magnet, you will know if you desire to be there or if it repels you. But if you feel and hear the call, it's Beck Antonucci on Instagram. That's where I'm most active. And then you can head over to my podcast, Raw, Real and Vulnerable. And I release an episode every Monday morning, 5 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time.
Amazing. And final question, which I'm very excited to ask you. If you could go back in time and give your 21-year-old self a little pep talk or a little word of advice, what would that be?
Before we wrap up this episode, I want to ask you a question. Do you remember how you discovered this podcast? Was it a friend's suggestion or an Instagram story, maybe a post? Somehow you found it, and I'm hoping you're getting a lot of value from it. I need your help now to pay it forward so that other women can feel seen, heard, nourished, and more than anything, empowered from these conversations too. Big love, back to the episode.
I would say to her to look at what she's avoiding. And I would share with her that the avoidance of emotional pain will only further manifest more pain into her reality.
Yep.
And then I would also tell her, like, it's all going to be worth it. Like, you're so brave. You've got this. I'm so proud of you. And I'd probably say thank you. Like, thank you for everything that you've gone through, because I'm me because of you.
Beautiful. I'm sure she would have really received that after everything that you shared about your high school experience as well. Beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us today, and make sure you check out the show notes where Beck's contact details are, her Instagram is, her podcast is, and thank you so much for joining, Beck. There was so much value in that episode.
Oh, that was so fun, and I cannot wait to share it all.